The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with the Zig Zag Man. Ralph Tycho pushing on the doors of Lake Mark Poe from Alameda, California. And as usual, I have a very special guest. They all are, and I choose them very carefully. One of the most special, not only as a guest, but as a friend, is Jerry Feitelberg. How are you, Jerry?
Thank you, Ralph. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. I just left the ballpark a few minutes ago, and I'm writing the game summary of today's A's loss to the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, go figure. Go figure. I would like to, as a Met fan, I would like to thank the A's for rounding out the team and making it a playoff winning year. I don't know how the hell you ever got rid of Marte, and he's just been tremendous. Makes up for Jed Lowry going to the Mets a few years ago. But that's another story. I want to talk sports with you, but as usual, the times we live in call for at least identifying what's going on. Jerry, has Trump lost it completely? Is this the beginning of the end? Is it? Are they going to prosecute him? I'm just curious.
Well, he's got a lot of stuff going on. He's got number one, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, is pressing ahead with her grand jury. She hasn't. She's identified Rudy Giuliani as a target, but she hasn't identified Trump yet. But they've got. They're getting close to the end of the year. They have to. This is a special grand jury. They can't indict. Then they have to go to a regular grand jury, and I'm sure that they will have all the information. That famous Trump call to Brad Raffensperger asking for 11,780 votes and intimidating him.
That's all he wanted. You know, he wasn't all that. He wasn't all that greedy. That's all he wanted was the election. He wanted to steal it. And how that didn't call for an indictment right there. What is wrong with the justice system that they can't, among the 800 other things that he's done, why is he the Teflon Don?
Well, so far they have the next Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. The J6 committee will have another hearing. The Justice Department has asked for a lot of information. I'm sure they might be referring that over to the Justice Department. So you got that going. There might be criminal referrals coming out of that. He's got the documents where the Justice Department went and got the FBI got a search warrant because he did not turn over all these documents that he took at the end of his presidency. And everything, he's been in the court. Yesterday he had a bad day. The appeals court ruled against what the Judge Cannon did down in Florida. They reversed just about everything that she did. It was a poor decision. Should never have been done that way. And she's sort of a disgrace now as a judge. She lost her credibility. But the appeals court got that. The Attorney General of the state of New York is suing Trump. It's a civil action for $250 million for all the false evaluations of his property and the devaluations of the property when it came to paying property taxes. So they got that going. I can't keep track of them all. There's just so much. Eventually, it's all going to come to a head, and one of them, hopefully one or all of them, he'll be facing a bunch of indictments and lawsuits, and if they can win their cases, he's done. He's done.
Let me add to that a little bit, and this could be checkmate for him. The suit in New York is a civil suit,
right?
But the DA or Attorney General, whatever she is referring the case to the IRS.
The IRS and yes, the Southern District of New York, the federal prosecutors of the Southern District. You have to remember that there was another case by the Manhattan DA, which was Cyrus Vance. Alvin Bragg took over, and then he stopped the proceedings. The two prosecutors that were doing it said they had a slam dunk case against them, and they quit. Bragg says the investigation is still going on, so that might get revived too now. Who knows? It'll be another thing.
Right. But, who do you fear most if you have something to fear? And that's the Internal Revenue. Plus, New York is already trying to shut them down as a corporation. And you know what makes me the happiest of all? They're including the Trump kids.
Yes, they are.
And
do you remember when they called in Eric Trump for testimony? Now this is a civil case, and it's the same thing when they had Trump himself went in there. Eric Trump took the fifth over 500 times. Donald Trump took it 440 times. Now in a civil case, people can infer that you have something to hide. It's not so in a criminal case. You cannot make an inference in a criminal case, but in a civil case you can. And so when the Attorney General gets into court, and God knows how long that's going to take, and they got to get a trial date and they got to prepare for it. And so when they get, and of course they got the Alan Weisselberg is going to be sentenced, I believe. He pled guilty, but I think he's going to be sentenced in the next couple of months, next couple of weeks, I think. I think on the 18th of October. So there's a lot going on with that. And I mean, when all this stuff comes out, it really appears that this guy was running a criminal operation. If you and I did one 1,000th of what these people did, they would have thrown us in the slammer right away, with different justice for regular people. And this guy's been involved in something like 4,000 lawsuits in his lifetime. And when he does it, when a rich person does it and has unlimited funds, they can paper you to death. It's what we did years ago when I did the lawsuit against the drug companies. We were pretty well financed for that. And then when it became a class action, it was totally different. But if our pharmacy association files a separate case against somebody, and the legal bills ran up to $500,000. Now, that was a tremendous amount of money for a state pharmacy association. They didn't have any more resources than that, so they had to settle. So they settled the case. Their opponents had tremendous amount of finances. They could have kept papering them, requiring them to do more and more, produce more and more documents and this type of thing. All this costs money. They could have run up the legal bills to $2, $3, $4 million. But when you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you can afford it. But you can't do it if you have a $2 million budget. You can't spend 25% or 50% of your budget on legal work. You'd be out of business. And this is what they do. And this is what Trump did against all his contractors and all the lawyers that he didn't pay. He knew that if they sued him, and by the time it got to court, he would paper them to death and run out all their resources and then force them to settle. And that was his modus operandi.
Is he crazy, or is he crazy like a fox? Which one?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think he knows what's going on. So, and he is crazy like a fox. He likes to play the victim because when he plays the victim, he gets more support from the MAGA people, and they open up their wallets and they give him money. That's why.
Doesn't it disgust you being on the same planet with his supporters? You see them at rallies and you hear them in clips. What is wrong with our country? What happened in the last 40 years to produce this socially? What happened?
It's kind of interesting. A lot of it started with Newt Gingrich back in '94 with his contract on America, and the disaffection of people, working class people who felt the Democrats weren't supporting them. They switched over to the Republicans. And you got to remember when the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1965, Lyndon Johnson said, "Well, we just lost the South." And as you know, back in the day when the Democrats had the Southern, all these old guys, these old Southern Democrats, you know, they found a place in the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party became pro-civil rights, and they wanted more equality for black people. And when that happened, all those people who were the white supremacists switched over to the Republican Party, and the South has gone from the Democratic side over to the Republican side. And that's the way it's been since Nixon. When Nixon got elected in '68, he used the Southern strategy. So what's that? That's 54 years ago, something like 54 years ago. He got elected 54 years ago. So it's been going on for over 50 years. And I remember in 1964 when the Republicans had their national convention at the Cow Palace here in San Francisco. When Nelson Rockefeller was introduced, he was booed, and the party had already started to switch to the right. There used to be a liberal wing of the Republican Party: Nelson Rockefeller, Jake Javits, John Lindsay. They were liberal Republicans. There was a place for them. Now that switched further and further to the right. Barry Goldwater was the conservative nominee in 1964, and now Barry Goldwater would probably be too far to the left for the way the MAGA Republicans.
They call him a socialist at this point.
Yeah, and you got to see, you know. And when I went to college, we would have. When I went to college at Bates College, we had a great debating team. And the kids, we would listen to the debates, and the kids would go out, and there would be a pro and con, and the pro speaker would talk for 10 minutes, make his points. The con speaker would speak for 10 minutes, make their points, and then they would have the rationale, explain the rationale for their beliefs. And so there was a discussion, and they could disagree, but they were agreeable about it. Now people disagree, and they yell and scream at you. You can't. If you're saying one thing, they start yelling at you. And one of the best examples, let's say, look at Facebook. If you go on Facebook and you put out your position, how you feel about a certain issue, you get trolled. There are people who will troll you, and they say nasty things. They don't know you, and they come out and say all these nasty things. So who wants to do that? It's totally polarized, and I'm not. I think you know that. I think that the Republicans are a lot nastier than the Democrats. That's all I can tell you.
Yes, but I'm just thinking the Democrats can be awfully nasty. Case in point, they supported a guy. I'm listening to CNN last night, who is such a crazed right-winger. He's in a primary with another Republican candidate, and the Democrats supported him financially, thinking they can beat this guy easier than they can beat the less crazed candidate, and something's wrong with the system that allows that.
Yeah, you got people shouting at you. You have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan and Paul Gosar screaming and yelling and spouting out stuff that's not true. And go back to the 30s in Germany, when you had the big lie by Goebbels and the propaganda that the Nazis put out. And look what that resulted in, how dangerous that was. And it turned out for the Jewish people, we lost 6 million Jewish people because of what the Nazis did and their propaganda.
Well, actually, the Iranians have a study that it was only 600. It wasn't 6 million. They're having a hell of an uproar in their country, where for the first time, as in Russia, the first time that I can remember, they are having protests. And so all this craziness may work out for the best in the end. I know you, like me, are much more confident about Trump's demise this week than we were last week.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yesterday, he got it. The special master said, I'm not going to look, before the appeals court said, go ahead, they gave the Justice Department what they wanted, and that the documents weren't going to be examined by the special master. So that was off the table, and then the criminal case could proceed. And that's very, very important, because the documents, and especially the classified documents, belong to the United States people, the people of the United States, and the executive branch. And if the executive branch says, these are our documents, Mr. Trump, you have to give it to us. That's the law. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
It has no bearing whether or not they're classified or not.
Has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And of course, the special master wanted to know from Trump's lawyers, where's your proof? Where's your proof that he just declassified it? You're saying those, and then they have some lame answer to that. Oh, we can't tell you because if we get indicted, that will spoil our defense. Right? Come on, it doesn't exist. None of it exists, and you get the craziness from him. Oh, I scribbled on them. No, you didn't. It's not your property. It's unbelievable, the stuff that's coming up, and the judge wants to know. Trump said that the FBI planted this stuff, and so now the judge is going to want to know, where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? You're saying these things. Where's your evidence? So who knows? He has no defense, and all the stuff he's putting out is nonsensical.
It's a stall tactic.
Yeah. Well,
nothing more.
All he got was 2 weeks out of it. So the FBI is back investigating it. And the thing is, and what was interesting was that this attorney Hirschman told Trump last year that what he did was illegal, and he'd be in a lot of legal jeopardy if he didn't hand the items back to the executive branch, to the archives, or whoever wants them. And Trump just disregarded that. And, he played games with them. They gave him part of the stuff, then obstructed it. And then they said they had given them all. They've got obstruction of justice. They got so many things in there that they can nail them on. So hopefully there will be justice. As I said, if you and I did something like that, we'd be in the slammer by now.
I want to know, Jerry, what happened to those documents? Were they used? Were secrets sold?
We don't know. We don't know if they found them in his desk. We don't know who had access to his desk. We don't know if he showed them to other people.
To be fair, they weren't all in his desk.
Some were.
Just that some were. He can't claim he didn't know about it. And he was upset about the FBI not taking off their shoes before they, quote, raided, unquote, the Mar-a-Lago. That's all he had to say. That's all he had to say. And I really think, and that's why I say, is he crazy like a fox? Because he had to know that what he was doing, just pure and simple, he's a thug. He's mafioso.
He's
with
playing
all due respect to mafioso.
He's playing the victim. That's all. But if any, the FBI, when they go into search, they take all the people, the area. They take people away from them, and they go in there and they search. They don't throw things around. They just go in and go through the stuff what they're looking for. Well, I can tell you when Isla's house was broken into on January 9th, 2021. The burglars came in and they dumped stuff all over the place. Because they were looking, they opened the drawers and they dumped the stuff out and that type of thing. The FBI does not dump the stuff out. They go through it and they record it and they take pictures of what they've gathered. They're very, very professional about it, and they keep the people away because they don't want the people interfering with the examination of the property that they're looking for. So, and Trump knew about it. He was told that they were coming in. He wasn't at the premises. I think he watched it on TV. He knew what they did, and it's all it's nonsense with him. It's all nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jerry, a great show as usual. You're concise and accurate. And well spoken. My God. Tell the folks how old you are, Jerry.
I will be 84 on November 9th.
Wow. And I will be 76 on November 8th.
That's
so
right. Wow.
That people out there, kids, middle-aged people, know that old age doesn't have to be like we were told it was going to be. And one can stay current, stay relevant, and stay informed and keep learning into the 70s and 80s. And that's the thing I'm most proud of on this network, is getting guys who are well seasoned, who prove week after week that they haven't lost a bit. We Jews call it seichel. Your marbles. We haven't lost it. And I'm so delighted that you haven't. Almost as delighted as I am that I haven't. But it's me, as it is with most of us.
I'm just going to compliment you on doing these podcasts, because you get to talk to people. You may not see them in person, but you get to know them over the telephone, and you have a nice stable of people who contribute to the program, and they have life experiences, and you tap into those life experiences. Some people have had good experiences. Some people had bad experiences, or had hardships that they've overcome. So, and it's nice to hear those stories from the people. And of course, as you and I go back a lot longer than some of the younger people, we've experienced more. We've seen the changes in life. Years ago, I asked a friend of mine, this fellow's 97, he's going to be 98 in January. And I said, well, what do you think was the biggest changes that you saw over the years? You know what he said? Inflation. And stop and think about it, how things were so inexpensive when you were a kid. I know you think, going to the movies in those days, and it was 35 or 40 cents. You thought that was expensive. But you go to a movie
Candy
today.
Bar was a nickel, not $1.05.
Yeah,
Makes
there you go.
it makes a big difference. And baseball cards were a nickel a pack. And
that's right.
That was my economy. That's what I based it on. And here's the big difference between now and those days. In those days, you had a parent that stayed home unless they had to. It was the norm that the parent stayed home, so the kid got a better upbringing. And I mean, I put that in quotes because you can make the case for a kid having to be responsible for themselves when they got home from school, learning a bigger life lesson that will serve them. But it's different. One parent was generally around most of the time.
Yeah, that's a big factor. No question about that. Because so many of the kids, you know, they call them latchkey kids. They come home, both parents are working. The mother comes home, the father comes home. They're both tired, and you know the kid's been at home since 2:30 to when they get home between 5 and 6. Who knows what kind of trouble they can get into at that time? So it does make a big difference.
Right.
Agreed.
And some people learn from getting in trouble, and some people don't. And I was referencing Trump right now. I don't think man was meant to take the pressures that he's feeling this week. I can see him imploding.
Oh, yeah, he's going out after everyone. He went after Pence today. He's gone out. He was on Sean Hannity's last night with his BS, and he could even declassify the material by thinking about it. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. That's insanity. Totally.
Right. That's why I say, is he crazy or crazy like a fox? He must know that. They must have talked to him in the White House about classifications, about pardons, about stuff like that.
Of course they did. There's protocols. Of course they did. He says he's going to declassify it. Did you notify the NSC? Did you notify the State Department? Did you know whoever's affected by the declassified document that you've done it? You're supposed to do those things. He didn't do any of those things. It's nonsense. And they probably have a record of all of the items that have been declassified. So to hear him say I can think about it is craziness.
Yeah. I read a statistic where if the feds bring a case against one, you, me, there's a 96% chance that they're going to win.
I hope so. I know that the Justice Department is waiting to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that they have their cases so that when they do go to trial, they're going to win. They want to have it all down. They don't want to leave any room for wiggle room so that they could get out of it. You know, it was kind of interesting in the New York Attorney General's case. The Trump organization offered to settle with the state of New York, and Letitia James said, "No way, too late." And then 2 days later they came out with the suit with all the stuff that they're going after them. You know, they want to make sure that they don't hold office for 5 years, that they can't do any transactions for 5 years. It was very, very involved. Lots of penalties, very severe penalties in that lawsuit, and it could put the kiss of death on the Trump organization.
I mean, the fraud is obvious. Trump says his apartment had 10,000 square feet or 30,000 square feet, and if they measure it, it's 10,000 square feet. How can you have the balls, the gall, to lie about something like that?
Yeah, and to say it's worth his apartment in New York, the 11,000 square foot apartment is worth $327 million. It might be worth $50 million, but not $327 million. It's absurd.
Whereas no apartment in New York, even the new ones, have ever sold for that amount.
Exactly. But what bothers me is the banks have people who come out and do appraisals. And so, 40 Wall Street, they appraised in 2010 or in 2012 or 13. 1 year it was appraised for $220 million. And the next year they said it was worth $547 million. Then it went back to $200 million. So they said the building's worth $547 to get a loan, and then when they had to pay the taxes on it, they said no, it's only worth $200 million. Where are the assessors for the city of New York?
They're obviously bribing the appraisers. And
your house is appraised. You know what the tax value is. The city of Oakland has an appraisal value, and if you go for a bank loan, you have to get an appraisal, and you have an independent appraiser come out, and either from the bank or you pay for it or whatever, and they tell you what the value of the property was. And the bank's not going to lend you more. Let's say, okay, my house here in Alameda is worth $10 million. And you go to the bank and they say, no, it's not worth $10 million. We've looked at it. It's worth $2 million or $3 million, whatever it is. They're not going to accept that for a loan. And when you go for a loan, you have to attest. When you go for a loan, you have to give them your tax returns to see what they want to know what you're doing. You've signed that under the penalty of perjury. And how does the guy sign these things saying, okay, what was interesting yesterday is Michael Cohen was on one of the shows.
Oh, on Don Lemon. Oh, that was great. That was great. He gave them a roadmap.
Yeah.
To Weinstein and the Trump organization. And he worked for Trump for 12 years.
Do you blame him? Trump threw him under the bus.
Right.
And the worst thing that they did, that Michael Cohen was in jail, and they had the COVID outbreak, and they sent him home, and he had an ankle monitor on him, and they found out that he was writing this book. So Bill Barr and Donald Trump ordered him back into prison, and they threw him into solitary confinement. And they, fortunately, Cohen said, "You're violating my right of free speech, my First Amendment right." And they had to get him out, release him from jail. But that's how vindictive they were, to throw him back into solitary confinement. So he figured, what the hell? I'm going after these guys. I'm not going to let up. And he was very, very happy with what transpired yesterday.
Yeah, you mentioned Barr. He did a complete reversal to save his ass and how he looked to his great grandkids, because he was an enabler for years and years. And
what he did on the Mueller report was unconscionable. He never read it. He came out with this 4-page summary of what it was, and they had Mueller's report was very thorough, and it had 10 counts of obstruction of justice that never went anywhere because of what Barr did. So, Barr was, you were absolutely right. He was an enabler, and Trump thought that the Justice Department was his personal attorneys. And you notice that Biden is keep making sure that the Justice Department works independently as they're supposed to.
Well,
quite a difference.
It is. It's mind blowing. That's about the best you can say. So, are you rooting for Judge to hit a home run tonight?
Oh, absolutely, and he's going to do it against the Red Sox. I was thinking today, in 1961, Roger Maris hit number 61 off the Red Sox Tracy Stallard. So it would be absolutely fitting. Why not? Judge is a great player. And I hope that.
And you know what's absolutely fitting is that Tracy Stallard was then a future Met.
Yes, he was. I remember that. And your Mets are in town tomorrow night. And how is this for a little bit of poetic justice? Guess who's Cole Irvin? The lefty Cole Irvin is going for the A's tomorrow night. But guess who's pitching for the Mets tomorrow night? How delicious is this? Chris Bassett.
Yes.
And yes. Chris is 14-8, having a terrific year with the Mets.
Right. And we mentioned we talked about Marte. We didn't talk about Canna and what he's meant to the Mets. And
Canna. Oh, he's an on base guy. He either gets hit by a pitch, takes walks. His OBP was close to 400. He's on base all the time. He's been a very, very solid player for them. Marte, I think, is hurt. He may not play tomorrow night. I don't think he's on the IL, but maybe. I don't know what the situation is.
He's slow to come back. He's got a broken finger, and he has trouble gripping the ball, gripping the bat. Yeah. But nevertheless, you and I are healthy, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I love the race. We can talk just a little bit of baseball before we go. I love the race in the National League East between the Braves and the Mets. Oh my gosh! And talk about misfortune for the Braves. Ozzie Albies, who broke his foot in June, he comes back in the first day game. He comes back, he fractures his finger, and he's gone for the season. Can you imagine that? And he was a great performer, but the Braves are only one game back in the Mets. They're neck and neck. I don't know if they play before. Do they have any games before the end of the year? It'd be delicious if they do.
They've got 4 or 5 games coming up.
Oh, that's going to be great.
Yes. I will say this about the baseball races. With the wild card and thing, I've never experienced personally a more exciting year. My Mets are in it, the Yankees are in it, and I'm a New Yorker, so I feel for the Yankees, although sometimes I can't reach them. Let's put it that way.
I have to say that I think Houston has got a better pitching staff than the Yankees. Their starters and their bullpen is much better, and they got the Astros got a very, very potent lineup themselves. You know, guys like Bregman, Altuve, the shortstop Pena, Yuli Gurriel. Then they got Christian Vasquez from the Red Sox, and Kyle Tucker, and then they got Trey Mancini when Michael Brantley's out for the year, and they got Mancini, and their DH, Jordan Alvarez, he's the second coming of Willie McCovey. Every time I see him, he's wearing number 44, and he's hitting home runs like McCovey. He's just unbelievable. Wow, he's a joy to watch.
All right, and you're a joy to podcast with, my friend.
Yeah, it's fun, and I'll have more time because the season is over. And maybe we can get our little foursome back together in October, and we'll have lunch out at the golf course again. So we'll see.
Sounds great. Give my regards to the judge.
Will do. Okay. It's been great.
Thank you, sir. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho. Jerry Feitelberg is priceless.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Happy trails and good luck.
Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.